Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Fall is in the air. Today we're talking about how to get your lawn ready for winter. Also, we will be talking about what to do to get your fruit trees ready for winter and spring. That's just ahead on the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joseph Seago. Joseph is the commercial horticulture agent in Shelby County, and Mr. D will be joining me later. Good to have you here, Joseph.
Good to be here again, Chris.
We're going to talk about fall lawn care. Let's start with warm season grasses.
Warm season grasses. So right now, going into fall and into winter is a really important time to get everything right, start managing for the winter.
Okay.
You do that so you can get a good early spring green up and good healthy lawn going into spring and into summertime. So a couple management practices that we want to continue doing into the fall, especially with mowing. We want to continue doing the 1/3 rule, cutting good. 1/3 rule. We don't want to remove any more than 1/3 of the leaf blade per cutting. Okay. We really want to avoid scalping at this time and any damaging to the turf that we can. Bermuda and zoysias are our two warm season grasses that we have here, and they need to be cut on different heights going into fall. A little bit shorter in the summertime, but in the fall you kind of want to bump it up for Bermuda 2 to 3.5 inches. Okay. And zoysia is a little bit shorter, so you want to do about 2 to 3 inches is where you need to be on.
And why do we need to do that?
You do that to kind of help protect the roots in the wintertime. Gives it a little bit more heat on the roots, kind of traps that heat in a little bit, and helps keep moisture in. Believe it or not, roots will dry out in the wintertime, especially if they're not getting any irrigation to them. And speaking of irrigation, we still want to water deeply and infrequently. We want to do at least a 1/2 inch to 1 inch per week. But warm season turf grasses, if they're going into the winter time, drought stressed, they're going to have a harder time coming out of it in the springtime. And you won't know that until spring.
Yeah, until we get to spring.
Right, until you get to spring. So it's really, really important to kind of keep that irrigation going. Recommendation is, every 3 to 4 weeks, if you're not getting rainfall, irrigate. Wow. Which is challenging because a lot of times we shut down our irrigation system. We winterize them, so we don't really have access to it. And again, you don't want to irrigate, turn things on if we're going to be coming up to freezing temperatures or below freezing temperatures.
That's a good point.
So it can get tricky, but if they're stressed because of drought, they're going to have a harder time. They're at greater risk for winter injury and winter kill.
Okay, wow.
Fertilizing and doing your lime applications. Fall is a great time for lime. Always fertilize in lime based on a soil test.
Oh, yes.
Get that soil test.
Right.
That way you know how much to apply, especially lime. And we want to make our last fertilizer application 6 to 8 weeks before our first historical frost. Okay. And you want to fertilize now because it just kind of gives those roots a little bit extra energy. Just kind of gets it a little bit more healthier. You're not going to put on a ton more growth because it is going into dormancy, but it just gives it a little bit more energy going into wintertime.
So do we need to be using a nitrogen fertilizer during this time?
Yes. Okay. Definitely use a nitrogen fertilizer, and remember, you want to do it 6 to 8 weeks before the first historical frost.
Good deal. Okay.
Another important practice that we need to be thinking about right now is weed management. Yeah. All right. You want to put down your fall pre-emergence to control those winter annual weeds, especially poa annua.
Yes.
Poa annua is going to start germinating when it gets about 70 degrees for 5 consecutive days. Okay. Soil temperature. That's about average, for air temperature, about 60, 65 degrees. And so you need to put down that pre-emergent at that time before that starts germinating. Again, you want to follow up with a pre-emergent every 90 days until spring after that first pre-emerge application.
So 90 days.
Every 90 days.
Yeah, get your calendar out.
Calendar out,
Yeah.
90 days, and it kind of works out kind of good for the, crabgrass pre-emergent too, and everything kind of lines up. And then for a fall post-emergent, once your broadleaf weeds start coming up, 3-way herbicide, 2,4-D, dicamba, MCPP.
Okay.
Will work great for that.
Make sure you read and follow the label on that too as well.
Definitely. Diseases are coming up right now for our warm season grasses. We kind of have two that we kind of look at. One is dollar spot, and it's been a little bit more in our area, a little bit more prevalent this year. We've been seeing it. Dollar spot is just a fungal disease. It happens when our temperatures are still warm during the day. It's still kind of hot and humid, but then it starts cooling off in the evening time. So we're kind of seeing some of that right now. Dollar spot it starts in the middle, kind of grows out, but it's about the size of a silver dollar.
Right.
That's why we call it dollar spot.
Got it.
All right. However, if you're cutting your grass kind of high, between that 2-3 inches, it can grow up to at least 6 inches.
Wow.
And it's a little bit harder to distinguish.
Okay.
A good fungicide, oxystrobin worked good for that. Products like Scott's Disease EX, Heritage G. Nitrogen kind of helps with the dollar spot. It can kind of help bring it bring it into recovery a little bit better. You want to use a low rate of nitrogen. You don't want to do anything big. And again, some cultural practices, water early in the morning. When you do mow, bag it or remove the clippings because you don't want that going back down in the thatch.
Got it. Okay.
And it kind of helps slow the spread of the disease as well. But always water in the morning.
Okay.
Don't want to do it in the evening time. That just encourages fungal diseases. Another fungal disease that we're looking out for is large patch. Large patch is caused by one of the variants of Rhizoconia salonia, and it occurs in our warm season turf grasses, particularly zoysia grasses. It can affect Bermuda, but we see it mostly in zoysia.
Okay.
For our fungal diseases, fungicides work better when you use them preventively. So if you have an area that you have known that has fungal issues, especially large patch, go ahead and treat it. And you want to start treating when the nighttime temperature is about 70 degrees. Large patch likes to be active between that 50 and 70 degrees. Again, using a good fungicide with the oxystrobin in it as the active ingredient, like Scott's Disease EX, Heritage G, and Strobe 2L. And again, cultural practices, proper mowing, fertilizing, water in the early morning, and kind of focus on improving drainage. Don't let that water sit.
Right.
You can
I
do
usually
that.
think that's a big one, improving the drainage.
Yeah, for sure. And then insects. You really only have to worry about fall armyworms. We've already seen some fall armyworms here in West Tennessee. But they're pretty easy to control. Good insecticide, bifenthrin, permethrin, those work pretty good to control fall armyworms. And it's the larva state that chews on the grass. And they're called foliar feeders, and they just chew the grass, the blades of grass. The roots are still there, so it can grow back from the rhizomes.
So it'll recover from the damage.
But when they get in large numbers, they'll just start chewing and kind of all go in the same direction. And you can kind of see the distinctive, where it's healthy and where they've chewed it all down. So they kind of get the army worm as they move.
Like an army.
Like an army.
Down through the grass.
Across the field, that's right.
How about that? So they prefer more Bermuda?
They do. They prefer more Bermuda. So we think of army worms as more of a agricultural crop pest, but they can get into Bermuda and they can do some damage. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. They feed during the day and at night, so you can actually go out there, kind of see them moving around. I've seen them moving around before, and just kind of look for them. But They prefer early morning
Early
feeding.
morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
you
usually when you see a
can-
lot of birds hanging around.
Yeah. A lot of birds.
Armyworms are
Mhm.
close. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yep.
All right, Josie, we appreciate that, man. That's good information about those, warm season grasses, right? Taking care of those during the fall. So thank you so much. We appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about why this pepper plant is wilting. Just a few weeks ago, it was actually doing just fine. Then all of a sudden, the whole plant just wilted. And what usually causes this is a bacterial wilt. Bacterial wilts usually happen because of too much moisture. So what we have to do here is, the next time, is make sure we correct the drainage problem. Because again, this area is actually poorly drained. So let's correct the drainage area. And we may need to put more organic material into this ground. Build it up a little bit so it will drain a lot better. So again, this is bacterial wilt. And as you can see, the whole plant has wilted. Because this plant has bacterial wilt, it cannot be saved. You will have to pull this plant up and throw it away. I wouldn't throw it in the compost pile, I just put it in the trash. All right, Mr. D, fall fruit tree care. What do we need to be doing?
Harvesting, if you have apples, and it's a little early on pears, or my pears anyway are not quite ready yet, but you need to, if you still have fruit on the trees and you've been following a cover spray program, you need to continue that until the pre-harvest delay that is on the label. You need to be sure you follow the label where that's concerned. Control weeds. This is a good time to you don't want grass and up around the base of your fruit trees. I like bare ground, and I used there's some good products out there. What's Cefoxidem is a real good grass material, and I try to get bare ground out under the drip line of my trees, and bare ground gives up ground heat a lot easier in the wintertime than ground that's covered with grass or weeds or mulch.
Right.
So I think that's a real good thing to do. If you've already harvested, and some of the earlier varieties we're through harvesting, make sure you don't, if you have mummies on that tree, get the mummies off and get rid of them. Don't just toss them away. You want to get rid of that source, because they can be a source of infection, next year for fungal diseases. And if you have, fruit on the ground, do the same thing. Get that out of there and get it completely out. Double bag it in a plastic bag and send it to the landfill. Don't put it in your compost pile.
Yeah.
Get it out of the area. So those are some things that you can do. This is a good time actually to do a soil test. It's not a good time to put fertilizer out, but it is a good time to put lime out if you need it. And most fruit trees need a pH of 6 to 6.5.
Okay.
So this is a good time to pull that soil sample, and you can lime any time that liming is needed. The earlier the better, because it takes a while for lime to actually change the pH of the soil. I certainly wouldn't put fertilizer out this time of the year. It's a little late for that. You don't want to encourage young, tender growth, because when you have a cold snap, that can create problems. It can kill the plants. It's not a good time to prune. We want to wait and do our pruning, late winter on the fruit trees, and that's pretty much it. Weed control, continue insect and disease control practices. Follow the label, and don't put these products out right as you're picking them, and just be sure you follow the label there.
Let me ask you this, Mr. D. So if you had a blight, this year, what can you do to control that for next year?
You're talking to somebody that I've got that on my apple trees.
Right.
I've got
on my
fungal
pear
disease,
tree.
and I'm just going to do a better job next year of following. I have to put them on a home orchard spray schedule. I'll follow the UT home orchard spray guide to the letter, and it's you're basically talking about every 7 to 10 days if you want clean, fruit. Now, I don't have any worms. I don't have any insect damage to speak of. I do have stink bug, a lot of stink bug damage. I don't have any caterpillar damage, I can say that. But I've got a lot of stink bug injury So if I had followed a regular spray program this year, my trees are really young. This is really the first year that I had a crop off of them.
Okay.
And I just didn't, I had more fruit than I thought I was going to have. And even with young trees, you're really supposed to keep them free of insects and diseases. Some of these fungal diseases thrive on the leaves and stems and all that, even if you don't have fruit. But I need to practice what I preach, and so I'm going to do a better job next year. I'm going to get rid of those mummies, get them out of the way, and I mean, I've done everything else. I actually did a good dormant spray last year with oil and liquid lime sulfur and those kind of things. I started out right, but then I got busy. It's been a really busy summer. And I'm talking about, I think I have 5 apple trees and a couple of pear trees. So
that's pretty good.
I'm just going to do a better job next year than I did this year. What about you? You say you've got some problems. Did you
follow?
Yeah,
I have a peach tree and a pear tree. It's like, I start off, pretty good like you did, but then, when you go through the season, you get busy and
it's really hard. I mean, with a cover spray, when you do a cover spray, we've had a lot of wet weather this August and late July and August, and if you were putting a protective cover spray out there, if it rains, it washes it off,
right.
And you've got to go back and do it again. And if you wait a couple of days, you have already opened your fruit up for infection. And if it rains every day, like it has done, there's absolutely no way to keep that protective coat on there. So it can be a little frustrating, but you just do the best you can do. And sometimes you're going to hit a home run,
Yeah, no home run for me.
And you realize the thing that's really it really hits you, is you realize these commercial folks. It really makes you appreciate what the commercial folks are doing, what they're having to go through, because Mother Nature is a variable out there that you can't really control. You can control water, you can control some of it,
right? But
you really can't control Mother Nature.
Okay, so the fall is also a good time to plant fruit trees, right?
Right. And I actually prefer planting them in late winter.
Okay.
But you can plant them in the fall of the year. But I prefer planting them about pruning time, prior to February and May. Of course, you avoid, by planting them in the fall, you avoid sticking them out there and getting a real hard freeze within 48 hours. It really causes problems. So if you've got a lot, but if you've just got a few, go on and order them now. That's the thing to do. Get in the catalogs, decide what you want, choose your varieties, go on and place the order.
Right.
And
some of those real popular varieties, it's hard to get.
they go quick. You're right.
Sometimes they may sell out.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I got to the point now, I always look for resistant varieties now, if I can find them.
That's why I don't have any peach or plum trees, because I've not found any that are resistant to plum curculio or brown rot. And I've had that. I've been down that road. When I lived down in Mobile, I had peach trees, and and I tried, and it's just really, really hard to get a healthy crop of peaches off of a home.
Trust me, I know that. Yeah. I fight that battle.
Well, once every 4 or 5 years just isn't quite rewarding enough.
Right.
Before we have to leave, Mr. D, any insect pests that may be causing problems late in the year that you know of?
Stink bugs are still working on your fruit, but it's really, really hard to control them. I mean, but yeah, they're a problem, and you can always tell where they've been feeding. They inject that substance in and then pull it out, and wherever they inject that substance, it really creates problems in the fruit.
All right, well, we appreciate that information, Mr. D. Thank you much.
Whenever you grow zucchini, pumpkins, any kind of squash, you're going to get squash bugs, and they can be a serious problem. The adults can be a vector of bacterial wilt, which can flatten your squash plant in just a day. It'll look great one day, the next day it'll just be completely wilted and flat on the ground. These bugs are really, really hard to control. So one of the best ways to control them is to get rid of their eggs. So right here, they lay their eggs on the bottom side of the leaf. They look like little bronze footballs. And the easiest way to get rid of them that I found, I just take some duct tape and form it into a loop, and you can just stick them to the eggs, and it just lifts them right off the leaf. Also, when the eggs hatch into small nymphs, the nymphs stick to the tape really well too. So With a little bit of duct tape, you can have completely organic control of the squash bug.
All right, here's our Q&A segment. Y'all ready?
Yep.
These are some great questions. Here's our first viewer email. What may have caused the split in my pawpaw tree? Will it survive, or should I plan to let the suckers take over? And this is Richie from Brooklyn, New York. What do you think about that one, Lisa? It's a good question.
That could be sun scald, could be mechanical damage.
Yeah.
It could even be lightning, but
It could be from a storm, right?
you know, but from what I'm thinking up in New York, it could be the sun scald due to the thin bark of the pawpaw tree. And so letting one of the suckers take over and maybe selecting 2 or 3 of those to let them grow and then deciding which one to be the leader later.
Right. I think that's good. Anything you want to add to that, Joseph?
Yeah, definitely prune out, whatever's dead.
Yeah.
Get that out of there.
Okay. Yeah, let it come up from the suckers because it will do that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that question, Richie. We appreciate that and the picture. Here's our next viewer email. What is the best way to get rid of nematodes in our raised beds? They are affecting plant growth and yields. And this is John from Memphis, Tennessee. So, Mr. John, we're going to help you out here. So what do you think about that, Lisa?
Well, I think you can get rid of those with soil solarization. You can also do crop rotation in using beneficial nematodes.
I would agree with that. With the crop rotation, you can go with non-host plants, and that would be like beans, legumes, or corn. And I would also incorporate organic matter, organic material into that raised bed, right, to build it up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a high population of soil microbes, and guess what those soil microbes are going to do?
Eat the nematodes.
They're going to eat the nematodes.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what I would do. I always look for resistant varieties, practice good sanitation.
Yes.
Scout. So if those plants start, fading, pretty fast, going downhill pretty fast, dying on you, something's wrong.
Yeah.
So something's wrong. So that's what I would do, right? So the soil solarization, hottest part of the year.
Yeah. For a few weeks, you put plastic down, and that kind of raises the temperature
Yeah.
and it kills them.
Yeah. So I would do that probably, hottest part of the year, 4, 6 to 7 weeks. I think that's sufficient. I think that'll work.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. All right, so thank you for that question. We appreciate that. All right, here's our next viewer email. This one's interesting. I have lots of millipedes in my vegetable garden. What insecticide would you recommend that would be effective and safe to use? This is Crystal from Nova Scotia, Canada. She says when she pulls back her straw mulch, they are everywhere. She knows they like mulch, but she needs it. This year, they completely wiped out her carrot seedlings. How about that? So, Crystal, this is what I would do for the millipedes. I would use diatomaceous earth and sprinkle that around my plant material,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when they go crawling around it, over it,
It's fossilized.
Diatoms.
Yes,
It's fossilized diatoms. There it goes. Fossilized diatoms, right? So they go across, it can pierce their body parts and it
Yes.
dehydrates them,
Yeah.
all at the same time. So that's what I would use. Now, of course, if it rains or something like that, it'll have to be reapplied.
Yeah.
You can do that. There's some other, methods to control the millipedes. I mean, you can use some of the oils, insecticidal
oil.
soap.
Yeah.
Neem oil, insecticidal soap is something else that you can use. Pyrethrins, comes to mind as something that you can use that would be safe. So that's what I would do.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
And they like the moisture.
They love the moisture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can get rid of the moisture,
Yeah.
if it's possible, you may not have as many, but
It's hard to
or look, always try to see if you can encourage predators, to come into your garden to help out. Frogs will love millipedes, birds,
Yeah.
will love millipedes. So if you can encourage those predators to come in,
And just
Ms. Crystal, I think that'll help.
make sure that you're not over mulching,
Right.
because that will hold the moisture.
It will
in
hold the
too.
moisture. That's a
Yep.
good point. All right. So there you have it, Crystal. We appreciate that question. Hope that helps you out. All right, here's our next viewer email. What is this plant? It came up voluntarily and has pretty little flowers and thorns. All right.
It's
What is that plant?
Carolina horse nettle.
Horse nettle.
Carolina horse nettle.
How about that?
Horse nettle is in the nightshade family. And it has, so horse nettle has a deep taproot system. A lot of people think of it as a weed. Pull it out, dig it out.
Be careful when you pull
Be
it out, though.
careful, it does have those
thorns.
little bitty thorns on them, and they're just real itty bitty, and they do hurt. They also can spread by rhizomes as well.
Yeah.
So they have both long taproot and the rhizomes. So
Right. So yeah, it can be pretty tough.
it can be
So
to
you
get
better-
out.
You better wear some
Yeah.
gloves. You have to pull that out.
Gloves and some good sharp shovels.
Right, and it does produce like a tomato berry, looking
Yeah.
berry that has seeds in it.
Yeah.
It's also called devil's tomato or devil's potato.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
There's a couple of other names that it's known by. So yeah, we appreciate that picture. It's a nice picture there. Yeah, I like that. Pretty little flowers and thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that? What's a weed?
It's
you
native.
know. Hey,
You know.
Weed, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so Lisa, Joseph, that was fun.
Yep.
Thank you much. Thank you
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Chris.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want more information about anything we talked about today, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have links to extension publications you can take into your garden. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.